Good morning, everyone. We will just leave it for 1 minute to let delegates arrive, and then we'll start. Hello, I am delighted to welcome you all to the very first Purple Tuesday Global Virtual Conference. I am Mike Adams, the creator and founder of Purple Tuesday and the chief executive of Purple, an organisation that is really changing the disability conversation. And together with my colleague Charlene Ovran, we will be hosting 7 sessions over the next 12 hours. But before we start, let me just run through some housekeeping with you. This session is being recorded and will be shared with you after the event, because we know that significant numbers of people will watch then on demand. Captions are enabled, so please turn them on in your viewing tab in Zoom if required. And probably, most importantly, use the Q&A and the chat box functions, please. We want to make this as interactive as we possibly can. And I would like to extend a huge thank you to our headline partner, eBay, and our global partners, Standard Chartered Bank, SHL, and Hidden Disability Sunflower Scheme, and to all of our national partners shown here. Without their contribution, today's conference would not be possible. So, the why. Purple Tuesday is about improving the disabled customer experience. And quite simply, I am Mike, a customer who happens to have a disability, but one that requires and increasingly expects to have a quality experience. And if I don't, I will take my purple pound, I will take my purple dollar or other currencies and go elsewhere. In the UK, I am one of 14.6 million disabled people and one of about 15% of the entire global population. And those who have heard me before will know these facts, but I want you to understand them because they're integral to the wider context in which we want to transform change. Did you know up to 80% of disabled people will have hidden disabilities? Mental health, neurodiversity, cancer, dyslexia. And so we have to reorientate the way that we think when we think disability. And 83% of disabled people will acquire their disability in their lifetime. And I always say, some people call me Mike and some people call me the 17 percenter. And that's because I'm one of 17% of disabled people who were born with their disability. But interestingly, wherever we go around the world, and today is truly global, the one symbol that stands out for disability is the wheelchair, and you'll recognize it all around the world. But it reflects 8% of the global disability population. And interestingly, I did a conference last week, a virtual one, where we had a poll. And I said to people, based on the definition of disability, that I have just described, how many of you, and there was over 350 people, how many of you would therefore know someone who was disabled in their family or in their close network? And that poll, that was a non-scientific poll, but that poll was over 80%. I think it was 86%. And that's why this issue resonates. And that's why all of us playing a part today, whether we're presenting or whether we are listening, just think about whether your auntie, your niece, your nephew, your granddad, your brother, your partner came to your business and was treated differently as a customer purely and simply because they had a disability. And the answer has to be no, which is why we are hosting this conference today and why Purple Tuesday is just so important. And the conference today will reach out to organisations and individuals across the world. And I was struck when I hosted a webinar for people in Southeast Asia about 18 months ago. And all the issues around being a disabled customer, and by the way, all the issues around being a disabled member of staff were exactly the same as we experience here in the UK. So this is a global issue. And I want to welcome participants from Pakistan, where we held our first Purple Tuesday dinner in Karachi only 2 years ago, and up flashed on my phone last night the monument in Karachi that we are going to light up on Purple Tuesday. And all of our participants from the UAE, where I was less than 2 weeks ago for a fantastic roundtable session to promote Purple Tuesday in the UAE. And for others, like in the US, they are either really very, very early risers, or they will watch the later sessions and watch this one on demand. But wherever you are, hello and welcome. And if you are watching this back on demand, thank you. I can absolutely reassure you this is going to be a great investment of your time. And one thing about Purple Tuesday, it has always been about the practical, handy hints, things that you can take away and implement. And one of the things that has been really interesting this year in terms of a commitment is the 6-second rule. When you talk to people on the neurodiverse spectrum or someone with a stammer, and that is you ask your question and then you wait for 6 seconds for people to process the question that you've asked and then answer it. And I can absolutely tell you from all the people who have done that in the last few months, the answer has been so much more enriched, and the individual, the customer, the member of staff has felt so valued. So if nothing else today, go away and start implementing the 6-second rule. And Purple Tuesday is about what is happening on the ground today. It's about listening to your peers around policy, practice, I would add passion, and I would add purpose. And joining up all organisations on the journey who are sharing their practice, their insight, their challenges. No one has reached their destination. And it's also about disabled customer ambassadors with lived experience. So important in how we grow this initiative, a collaboration and partnership. And there are so many different topics to cover. To see each of the sessions as an individual module for you, your organisation, your staff, in a way, your own DIY kit. So let's get started. Disability inclusion, the customer. What I would say to you, top down, bottom up, inside out, outside in. That is the way to think about this issue. And we're going to start with a leadership issue about social leadership of disability. And I am absolutely delighted to introduce my panelists today. They are Harriet Jameson, Director of Social Value at Allwyn, Rob Lydyard, CEO of Yapster, Crispin Manners from Inspiring Workplaces, Madavi Latha from Standard Chartered Bank, and Meta Morali, Head of Marketing and Communications at Zurich International Life. And my first guest is Harriet from Allwyn, who have recently been awarded the licence from the UK National Lottery. And I can absolutely tell you that it is not often that the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, where I say wow in a room and really, really mean it. But meeting Harriet and her senior leadership team was absolutely one of those moments. So welcome, Harriet. Congratulations on the recent award of the lottery license. Can you tell, I was going to say, can you tell people how you made the hairs on my neck stand up? But maybe that's probably too personal at 9:30 UK time. So can you outline how your organisation plan to drive social leadership in disability?
Thanks, Mike, and great to be here, and great opening question. So as you say, Allwyn is taking over the running of the National Lottery from 2024, and so we're now in a transition period where Allwyn is growing and scaling very quickly. And so the way we see social leadership, I would say it's sort of twofold. One is about our own business and our employees, and how we can be leaders within our business, but it's also about in the sector, in the lottery sector and in the wider sector, how we can have an influence. And we've set out ambitious targets. Maybe that's where the hairs on the back of your neck went up. And we're really at the start of our journey, and we're very excited about it. And one of the big opportunities, I think, as an operator of lotteries and taking over the running of the National Lottery here in the UK, is that you work with a huge array of stakeholders, a huge network, whether that is the hundreds of suppliers, the thousands and thousands of large and small retailers who already stock lottery products, or the brand itself, the very well-known brand. And so that gives us a real opportunity around social leadership in disability. And to give an example of that, we have now set up, when we're selecting new suppliers, there is a very significant weighting put on social value when we are selecting those suppliers. And within that weighting, there are a lot of probing questions around disability, the supplier's approach to disability inclusion. And so, for example, do they have the voice of disabled people in the design of their products or their services? So those are things that we're sort of building in right from the outset. But it's not just about working with those suppliers who've already got it right. I would assume that most of them are not going to be experts in WCAG compliance and AAA features. And so it's also about taking those suppliers on that journey with us as we start, and making sure we've got the right support for those suppliers who are really ambitious in this space as well. And so our approach here is that we are ambitious. We want to strive to be the best. We will listen to our stakeholders as we go, and we recognise that we're really at the start of this journey to make the National Lottery a lottery for everyone.
No, absolutely. And one of the things that strikes me, and I think is a really important message for everyone today, social leadership is about the tangibles, but it's also about the intangibles as well. And, you know, when we walked into your senior management team, this was not just a discussion because it's a thing we had to do. People lived it, they felt it, they could draw on their experience, and they wanted their organisation to reflect the values which they had around the table. And I just wondered, how has your leadership team been able to harness that and engage your staff in such an important issue as disability?
So So I think it is some of those things you've just mentioned. So values, absolutely. One of our core corporate values is to be inclusive, and what that helps you to be able to do is it therefore comes into your personal objectives. It comes into your performance review. It really comes into everybody's role because it's part of your core corporate values. But that point you make about lived experience. So right from the outset of designing our bid to take over the running of the National Lottery, we knew we wanted to be inclusive. We knew we wanted to be fully accessible. But it wasn't until I really started talking properly with our senior leadership that I realized, as you say, how many people this touched personally. Many of them have got lived experience, often in their immediate family, of people who are living with a disability. And so what that has really helped do is it becomes part of their own personal values. This is not about setting out some corporate values, which people then need to abide by. And that's been really inspirational. And that's something I really want to harness going forward, is that inspiration when you have a leadership right from your CEO who can speak with sort of authenticity, because this is something they've struggled with, these challenges. Just this morning, I was speaking with our CEO about a family member who's facing new barriers related to their disability. So this is really something that they see not just in a workplace. But the other way I would say that we can really engage our employees is that this is about every touch point. This isn't just a recruitment issue. This isn't a people issue only. It's about saying everyone's got a role in running a national lottery where you remove those barriers to accessibility. So some examples would be our commercial team that helped to design the products and the games. They've been challenged to look at how they can remove barriers, whether you're playing a game online, whether you're going into a retailer. How do they remove those barriers to make that as an accessible experience for people with any type of disability? Or when you're looking at marketing, how do we work with creative agencies that bring the voice of someone with a disability right from the sort of creative conception through to the final execution? Or when you're talking with the retail team who will be working with over 45,000 retailers, helping bring in expert advice, mystery shopping, different ways that they can start to look at how to support retailers to remove some of those barriers. So when you make it relevant to everybody's role, I think that's when you start to really engage people. And then the final point is clearly recruitment, because that is such an important part. So we're doing the things that you would expect. We plan to work with a disability jobs board. We're doing an accessibility audit on our new office, all those sorts of things. But it's speaking out. So being at events like this is so important. And in fact, I was interviewing someone for a role at Allwyn recently, and they disclosed within the interview that they had a disability. And when I said, why are you interested to work for Allwyn? They said, actually, we saw you speaking at one of a similar type event, and it was great to show that this was going to be an inclusive organisation, even if you're at the start of your journey. And we're all the better for having that person with us at Allwyn today. So it's about bringing the right people into the organisation, never sitting on your laurels, monitoring that you are actually bringing diversity into your organization, and having the right sort of governance and oversight if you're not, because all those things I've just mentioned are great, but if you're not bringing people with disabilities into your organization to help you shape the brand, the products or services, then you're not doing enough.
Absolutely brilliant. And what a start. And thank you ever so much, Harriet. And just to pick up and draw and summarize on a couple of things you said. One is about, so we talk about 80% of disabled people having a hidden disability. And that gives those individuals the decision about whether to disclose or not to disclose, both as a customer and as an employee. And just your example of that individual feeling able, because that individual had seen you talk about the values around disability, to be able to disclose says a lot about the organisation. And for many organisations, the biggest issue is creating an environment that makes people feel that they can disclose they have a disability and they have additional needs. Because 99 times out of 100, that can then be resolved. The individual's happy and the organisation is more productive. So in some ways, it is absolutely the right thing to do. And whatever your stated percentage of disabled employees, for example, in the organisation, I can tell you it'll be a lot higher, and you can raise that very quickly through creating a culture of disclosure that then ripples out into the customers as well. And just by way of a kind of sales pitch, by the way, Harriet mentioned about inclusive marketing and communications. Now, if you just want to wait another 10, 11 hours, we're running a session on that where we give you the top tips about how it works. So bear with us, and you can get some of the practical solutions to what Harriet so eloquently said this morning. So thank you, Harriet. We'll probably come back to you in the questions. Just to the people watching this morning, you have two responsibilities. One, to be the first, second and third to ask questions, because we absolutely want to make this interactive. And two, think about all the people who are watching this on demand who don't get the opportunity to ask a question, and think about what is it that they might want to ask that you ought to be responsible for asking on their behalf. So I now want to introduce Rob Lydyard from Yapster. And the absolute brilliant thing about Rob is that Purple was created in 2016. We opened the stock market, and for some reason, I ended up on the front cover of a magazine. I'm not quite sure why the numbers didn't plummet thereafter. And Rob was the first person to pick up the phone and go, I've seen your ugly mug on the front cover of this magazine. You're talking about something really, really interesting. Can we speak? And Rob, often phrases are bandied about. People nod and pretend that they really understand it when actually it's not fully understood. And social leadership is one of those phrases that has crept up. You do social leadership. So it would be absolutely brilliant if you could explain to us what it is.
Well, thank you for having me, Mike. And I remember you very generously coming to meet me in Euston back in 2016 after that magazine cover, buying me a few beers and really opening my eyes to the Purple Pound and the mission. It's amazing these years on seeing what the organisation has transformed into. So feel very privileged to be here and excited to see the movement continue to grow. So social leadership, the way that we define it, so Yapster is a mobile communication system used in the frontline economy. Okay, in the frontline economy, so retail, hospitality, supply chain, most people don't have a lot of the technologies that are taken for granted in the knowledge economy. So things like email, smartphones, most people are communicated with in retail, hospitality or supply chain through sort of posters on the back of the door. What Yapster is it's an inclusive, secure mobile communication system that people download on their personal devices to be able to access corporate communications, to talk to one another securely and inclusively, and to talk to the business. Okay, so that's our product. But social leadership is an idea that's bigger than any one technology. And all it is, at least as we define it, and actually I've been invited to be Mike, I haven't told you this, but I've been invited to be a guest lecturer with King's Business School. We're going to be doing executive leadership training programs on social e-leadership, they're calling it. And it's just a mix of classic leadership communications, so aligning and inspiring people around a culture or an operating plan, but practicing that through the magic of social media, so delivering through the smartphone. That's all it is, aligning and inspiring people, but at massive scale. And the thing that's really interesting, and I think that overlaps so neatly with the Purple mission, the Purple Pound, is the thing about physical leadership is it has limitations. It's really important, but it has limitations. Sadly, the laws of physics mean that we can each only be in one room at a time. And so when we're trying to influence people in person, we can only influence those that we're within physical proximity of. When we influence digitally, in addition to lighting up the physical room that we're in, suddenly those physical restrictions on the number of people that we can influence and the geographic territory that we can cover evaporates. The only limiting factor is access to technology. And of course, we still need to keep working across our societies to make sure that technology is accessible, broadband, hardware, whatever. But once you remove those physical limitations, the only limitation is the purity, the authenticity, the attractiveness of your vision, and the charisma of the leader and the willingness to communicate that vision to that willing audience. And so, like I say, social leadership's an idea much bigger than just Yapster. But what we spend our time at Yapster doing, in addition to trying to get people to buy our actual software, is working with leaders to understand what is it that they're trying to bring into the world in terms of vision. What behaviors are they trying to affect in their customers or their employees? And again, of course, getting our customers, the likes of Next, Cafe Nero, Krispy Kreme, Welcome Break, a lot of these brands that the public touches, to think about the purple pound and think about making their organizations not just more inclusive because it's the right thing to do, but because it's also economically a smart thing to do to capitalize on every customer service and profit opportunity across the full breadth of society and the economy. And the only way you're going to do that at scale is through social leadership. You just can't keep burning shoe leather and petrol trying to go out and persuade people in ones and twos.
So just describe for us one example of an organization, someone who has done this really effectively, made you smile. What was it that they did that made you smile?
So throughout COVID, so one of the sectors that we've worked with that were most horrendously affected was the hospitality sector, right? Because it just was completely shut down. We saw the most incredible, I mean, it almost felt like sort of like economic wartime type leadership. You know, you had leaders standing up in front of their workforce where, you know, as a leader, often you feel like you have to have all the answers. The employee population kind of expects you to. And so much of the forces that people were being subjected to was truly outside of their control. I don't know if people remember, but there was a first week between lockdowns being announced and the furlough scheme coming out in 2020, where lots and lots of employers thought they were going to be instantly insolvent because they physically couldn't meet their payroll if there was literally no money coming in the till, right? So they assumed they were going to have to lay off, they were just going to have to close their doors and lay off everybody. And so you had this period of time where leaders were having to stand up, or the good ones were standing up and communicating to their team, not to say that they had an answer, but specifically to say that they didn't have an answer, but in good faith, they wanted to stand in front of their employees and tell them that they didn't have the answer, but that they would communicate the process with each new piece of information that came to the leaders. And the thing that was interesting is, even though it was awful, what made me smile was seeing the way these teams came together and rallied around these leaders who stood up and said, I don't know what's going on, but I promise you I'm going to give it my all and do the right thing by you. And I need you to help all of us get through this together. That was pretty cool.
I was one of them, Rob, and it was really fascinating leading an organization that was exclusively office-based and suddenly went remote overnight, and trying to navigate that organization where the information I had was exactly the same information in real time that every other member of staff had, because they were watching the briefings the night before. I had no scrap of information. I had no insight that no one did. And the organization, we had a skeleton staff in the organization, and everyone else was remote. And Purple as a business wanted to pay, you talk about pay, wanted to pay those carers who were still going into people's houses when everyone else was locked down and getting to save the people up to give them a degree of independence. And we as an organization said, if those people are doing that, the least we can do is make sure that they get paid. And at the end of it, I just thought, well, I have got a different relationship with my staff. You know, I don't know all the answers, but they absolutely know our values now. They live and breathe our values now. This is a brilliant platform to which to take off. And so I think, and digitally, you know, we know from Purple the way in which we send out our messages is very much so through digital means. And if you live in my household, 15 minutes before bedtime, all the apps come up and you flick through everything else to have a kind of synopsis of the day before you can go to sleep. Totally bad habit, by the way. And it's the first 15 minutes you do in the morning as well. So I'm not saying it's all good, but it's the way that people absolutely receive their information. And if you want to show social leadership, then we need to utilize this technology in an accessible way to reach out to our organization, explain our brand and the values that we stand for. So thank you ever so much, Rob. And that segues really, really nicely into what is absolute key for organizations around social leadership, which is taking your staff on that journey and them always coming with you. And I'm delighted and actually grateful to Crispin Manners from Inspiring Workplaces to be joining me today. Everyone, and just to let you know, Crispin has stepped in at the very last minute. So I'm going to go gently on you, Crispin, but I'm going to ask you the questions that need to be answered. So from your perspective and your organization's perspective, that is fundamentally about staff engagement. You know, what role do leaders play in creating inclusive places to work?
Hi, Mike. Hi, everyone. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of this. You've already covered some amazingly important points, which hopefully I will refer back to as we go through. First thing is, depends what the definition of a leader is. I mean, traditionally people think of it being the people at the top of a business, but we like to think of it in terms of people who show leadership in moving the business forward, moving the organization forward, making the organization more inclusive, and that could be anyone in the organization. Obviously, you've got leaders who are line managers and have a real influence on the way that the team they work with behaves, and then you've got the guys at the top. I think it's also important to think about what inclusion really means. And we feel, you know, Inspiring Workplaces, we feel it goes well beyond diversity, equity, inclusion to enable everyone to do something that I think you said a couple of moments ago, which is to bring their best self to work. It also, inclusion also means ensuring everyone feels involved and connected. And I'll probably talk a bit more about that in a minute. Because they're in an environment that's psychologically safe, and you mentioned the importance of disclosure. I think that's a first step to creating that environment. But we also think inclusion also means that the organisation operates in a way that includes the connected family and the local and global communities, so that people feel that work is not somehow disconnected from their life outside work, which we think is an important thing. The other thing I think we believe is fundamental to inclusion in Inspiring Workplaces is that it's fueled by what we call belief and belonging. And that means leaders have a really important role to ensure that the organisation has a very clear purpose or why. And the clarity of that, I think, is really important, because it enables people to decide for themselves if they believe what the organisation believes. And in doing that, they can make an informed choice about whether joining that organisation is going to be a good environment for them, because they have a shared belief. So we always start with purpose. You've already mentioned it. And the need for that purpose to come from the hearts of the leadership team. You know, quite a lot of organizations go through the purpose process to try and make them sound an attractive organization to join, but the leadership team sometimes don't necessarily believe in the words that are on the wall, and we think that's a fundamental disservice to anyone who goes to work there, and would help organizations to create a purpose that comes from the heart. It also means that if you've got, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, so to kind of summarize that, because I think you're absolutely right. It is about a genuine, authentic why, the why question, and then what is the golden thread through this for your staff, your customers, your other stakeholders, is the trust that you are going to deliver on that. And I would say many organizations say, they bandy the word, we are inclusive, we are welcoming to disabled customers, because we have a statement on our website that tells us that. But actually, you've got to be, as a disabled customer and as a staff, you've got to be able to trust that. You've got to be able to see that. You've got to be able to feel that. It goes back to the Harriet point about the tangibles and the intangibles. And I can tell you, you can walk into a room, and I'll talk about that in a minute in Zurich International Life, by the way. You walk into a room and you know it. You know whether it's authentic. And I guess, you know, for inspiring workplaces, it's about, in terms of this agenda, and because I don't believe in 2022, many staff would not want to offer disabled customers a really good quality experience, which is at what the heart of Purple Tuesday is. But it's not maybe the why, it's the how, and that is the position that Purple Tuesday kind of has in sharing and promoting really good accessible processes that enables the awareness, the knowledge, the understanding, the engagement, and the involvement. And I just wondered, Crispin, whether or not you could just give us an example or two where you've seen really good staff engagement in terms of disability.
Yeah, I mean, I think picking up on what you've just said, and also relating it back to what Harriet said, is that, you know, if you've got a very clear why, it makes it much easier for you as a leadership team to make the right choices in your organisation so that it runs through everything that you do. I think you went on to mention the how, which again, a lot of people, organisations disconnect those two things, and making it clear to people about how we are going to behave, and I think Harriet mentioned that going right through things like job descriptions, so that if those values are really important, they're embedded in the job description. So in terms of where have we seen good things being done, I think in January, Channel 4 announced a mentoring scheme that they developed in partnership with a group called CCC DANC, the Disabled Artists Networking Community. And their goal was to address what Channel 4 calls the serious lack of disabled people in senior decision-making roles. Now, I think it's an innovative initiative because it focuses on enabling people with leadership potential to overcome the barriers that are often put in their way for achieving a leadership position. And by achieving a leadership position, delivering sustainable change in becoming a more inclusive organisation. So one of the things I recommend people listening in today have a look at, because it will help you communicate in a way that can be truly inclusive. And you know, Mike's already mentioned to you the 6-second rule, which is a really neat thing to have front of mind when you're communicating with people. But there's a neuroscience framework out there called SCARF, SCARF, and I think if people learn to communicate by using the principles of SCARF, I think it will mean that you're much more likely to create an inclusive organisation. And without going into each of those now, because I know we don't have time, I think what Channel 4 did that made it a really good initiative is that not only did it create a greater sense of status, relatedness and fairness, 3 of the elements of SCARF, but it also satisfied the need that our brain has for a level of autonomy, knowing what we can decide for ourselves, by giving the mentees the skills and understanding required to feel more in control of their own career development. So I think, picking up on something else you said, I think another organisation that's done some good stuff this year is Adobe, which relates to your point on disclosure. They've had a whole campaign of making sure that people with various disabilities, particularly the hidden ones, were able to have a voice in their organisation by sharing their story, and not just the impact their disability has on the way that they work, but also the way that they have contributed to the organisation, so that they felt they can demonstrate their positive impact on the organisation by surfacing this hidden disability. And the final thing I guess I'd like to say is that you mentioned that this is a journey, and that we may never reach the perfect destination. So one thing I'd like to share is a client of ours actually tried to take the first step to being inclusive by going through a disclosure process, and sent out an anonymous survey to all its employees around the world to try and establish how many of these disabilities are represented in the business. Now, obviously, that is a first step, and they've got a long way to go, but it already demonstrates and signals that they care about becoming inclusive. And clearly, there's a lot of other companies who need to make that step.
Absolutely, Christian, and thank you ever so much. We hosted a webinar a couple of weeks ago with disabled people, and the one thing that came out was do something, just do something to get going. And you know, so I think that's a great kind of way in which, thank you ever so much for your comments today. And I'd like to now introduce Nagadi Latha from Standard Chartered Bank, who is our global banking partner, for whom we've worked with for 2-3 years, and we are absolutely delighted to welcome you today. And I wonder whether you could just tell us about what you think the key principles to successfully engaging your employees have been in this kind of disability agenda across your global business.
Thank you, Mike. Glad to be in conversation with you. So the most important thing for any organization is to demonstrate its culture of inclusivity. It needs to start with listening to their own staff with disabilities and engage everyone in the discussion, not just staff with disabilities. I am a person with a disability. I am part of employee resource group in India and also another D&I committee in our bank. When I gave suggestion to support our staff with disabilities to become self-advocates by forming affinity groups, arranging reverse mentoring and coaching, allyship program, like some initiatives, when I suggested, our committee members, they didn't stop with just listening to that one. They welcomed it. they promised me to provide all the required support, and they encouraged me to take initiative for that initiative. And then after that, I got the opportunity to present about this initiative to our top management. They were very much impressed with that, and they extended full support. So we have been working on all those initiatives. Now we are able to see the results, like improvement in the confidence levels of our staff with disabilities. And now they started speaking for themselves in the performance review discussions. And then engaging everyone. So engaging everyone through our allyship program, what I observed, employees without disabilities, when they participated in our activities, they were able to understand the barriers our staff with disabilities are facing. And then they're coming up with very good solutions using their experience and knowledge. So that is very helpful for us. And another example is through our employee resource group is supporting our deaf staff to facilitate sign language sessions. So whenever I attend those sessions, I feel so happy after seeing the participation levels. More big number of participants. That shows our staff's enthusiasm and interest to have proper communication, effective communication with our deaf colleagues. So next is like we need to have interventions throughout employee life cycle, starting from recruitment, next performance review discussions, after that promotion. So recruitment process, previously other speakers also told that notification should be inclusive, and apart from having proper accommodations while having interviews, I strongly feel that that conversation should happen without any assumptions and generalizing things. Example is, okay, this candidate is blind, so he or she can't do this job, so I don't ask any question regarding that. So that we not assume. And also another generalizing is like, okay, previously when I checked with one wheelchair user, that person responded about some requirements. So every wheelchair user will have same requirements. No, that's not the case. Every person's requirements will be different, and their perspective also different. After that, next is onboarding process also should be smooth. Then we need to have this performance review discussions. When we come to performance review discussions, what I observe, when managers are confident about, okay, I conveyed my expectations to my team member with a disability, I provided all the required accommodations to perform her or his duties, and provided equal opportunities with regard to training and coaching. When they have that confidence, then that performance review discussions will happen the way it happens with other team members. When they lack that one, then they may try to avoid those discussions. Even if they have also, that may not be in the way it is supposed to be. But now we are organizing many sessions to guide managers on various things like a reasonable accommodation policy and other facilities available, so many other things. And because of this self-advocacy related initiatives, now staff with disabilities are also getting confidence to have that discussions without any hesitation. So coming to promotion list needs to be balanced. But at present, we are majorly depending on the voluntary disclosures. I personally feel when a person with visible disability is treated fairly, then staff with invisible disabilities feel comfortable and also feel that psychological safety to disclose. That the level of disclosures shows the commitment of the organization towards inclusion. And next is like a accommodation policy. Our reasonable accommodation policy should be hassle-free. So then only these managers or staff with disabilities will be able to perform to meet the business requirements. And final thing is about recognition of good work, particularly when managers having team members with diverse backgrounds, when they show good results, they must be recognized loudly and proudly. So that will motivate other managers to have more team members with diverse backgrounds. So I think these are the principles, most important principles to engage everyone.
No, absolutely. And overall of that, Madhavi, is the fact that if an organisation is going to do disability inclusion, then you have to involve every member of staff. You know, it is disabled people and allies. It cannot be done, and we have to move disability from being a very marginal issue that's addressed by 2%, 3% of the organisation to what Standard are doing, which is this is a organisation-wide issue. And do you know why I know? Because I did a webinar for Standard about 18 months ago, and it is the highest number of participants that I have ever done in a webinar. And I started to get nervous. And do you know why? It was because everyone in the organisation had bought into it. Everyone either had lived experience or knew people who did, wanted to work for an organisation that truly believed in equality and inclusion. So thank you ever so much. And I'm absolutely humbled actually to introduce Meta. And I visited your offices 2 weeks ago in Dubai, and was involved in a town hall staff meeting with your staff, and goes back to what we said at the start. You could just feel the experience, the involvement, the values of an organisation who believe absolutely in this issue. And I just wanted to ask you a simple question, Maker, really. How have you done it?
Actually, thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, and we are so proud and so happy to meet you on the meet-time 2 weeks ago. It was a very nice moment for all of us at Zurich Middle East. I would say it starts at a global level, because at a global level, with group, we have Zurich Foundation, which has been created to empower the activism in all of us and to create a brighter future for vulnerable people. We really aim to have a more equal world, and we have a target. By 2024, we want to create transformative changes for 1 million vulnerable people and to have a positive impact for 10 other million. So yes, we have a target. And in the Middle East, we are very driven by the same vision, by the same passion. And we really walk the talk. When you said we need to embed all the people, we are fully aligned with your vision. It's not only at the ex-core leadership level, it should be with all our staff. And for us, being there for people of determination has always been important. I would like just to, as we say in French, open a bracket to explain what people of determination means, because it's very Middle East. So actually in the UAE, we mention people with determination, people with disability as people of determination, just to recognize their tenacity, their achievement in many fields. So it's a very powerful word. This is why we use people of determination. So as I said, being there for them is very important. So since inception of Zurich and the Middle East, we partner with schools for kids with special needs. We support tuition fees. We have as well volunteering program to ensure our staff will give their time and will be involved in this area. And we do as well for our staff, because in the UAE, school fees are very, very expensive, and it's even more expensive for parents who have kids of determination. So in the UAE, company tends to provide a school allowance, and here we increase the school allowance for our staff who have kids of determination. So it's very important for us. And being now partner of Purple, we go one step further, and it makes us even more proud. And as I said, it's with all our staff, it's a movement. It's really thanks to all of them we can bring to life what we stand for. So the announcement was actually in 2 steps. It's quite recent. The first step was with all our manager, mid-management. It was in August with Mike. It was through team, but here we had a big workshop. And the purpose was to share the vision of Purple and to understand how, from our point of view, our level, we can make an impact on customer experience. And to be honest, it has been so fantastic discussion, impassioned, very fruitful. People really wanted to have an impact. So we come up with a lot of ideas and come up with actually 2 to implement in 2022. The first one is really about our people again, because this is where we need to start. So we have now like specific assistant for people of determination. So we have 8 Purple Champion, who are now who will be the key go-to person for people of determination. They will be trained, a specific training, and they will be certified. So it's a nice step. Second commitment is to create a Zurich Purple advocacy group, because amongst our staff, amongst our customers, we have obviously people of determination, and we don't know how to engage with them. So we'll get the support from Purple to reach out to customers who have acquired their disability over the last years, to understand their journey, what they faced, how Zurich supported and how we can be better, what service they would need from us now. So like that, we create a specific group to, and they will be part of that to help us to improve and to deliver best services and best product. And people from our staff will be joining as well, because we have, our lovely Gita with people of determination. Our son is as well a kid of determination. So we have a lot of people who can help us to be better. So it's with our staff. The second step of the announcement was with all our staff 2 weeks ago when Mike was there, and it was again very emotional. And by the way, it was the same day that we launched our new Middle East value, care, being caring for each other. So it was very, very strong and very emotional. People came back to us at the end of this town hall to express their joy to be part of the journey. They are very willing to play an active role. They are very happy to have a job which has a meaning, and being able to contribute from at their level to the journey of people of determination. And I would like to say that Mike, you often says that company offers a very nice customer experience for people of determination gain their loyalty. To be honest, I strongly believe it's exactly the same for your people. Whenever you provide a working environment, when you let them playing a role, when you showcase you are inclusive, you create like a foundation, and you create like an indestructible rock to create a lot of disruption and being better together.
Thank you ever so much, Meta. And I now want to swiftly move on and introduce Tanzila Khan, one of our Purple Tuesday disabled customer ambassadors, who is doing absolutely fantastic things and is helping us launch Purple Tuesday in Pakistan, as well as our kind of global objectives. And in some ways, Tanzila, can you tell us how you have used social media to promote social leadership, your achievements, and the influence people with disabilities can have?
Thank you so much, Mike, firstly for everything that you do and for having us all over here be part of this important conversation. And I think it goes back to the basics that we never really consider people with disabilities as a market. We never really picture them as customers, even when we're in school, we're in MBA, we're in these business settings. We don't really understand that this community is not just a community that's there to just satisfy in terms of the charity needs that organizations and individuals have, but they're a market. And I say this with a lot of zeal because I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I'm a beneficiary myself of all the services and the programs that are inclusive. Having said that, I think in Pakistan, one thing that we have really missed on is the level of opportunity. Everyone is very, very hardworking. Everyone has a powerful connection to their roots. They have a very strong story. Pakistan has gone through so much history. There has been a lot of layers of societal changes and influence of media and West. Social media could be a great way to bring all those stories on their surface and actually generate ideas. I completely agree with all my fellow panelists over here, and one particular comment about having a unique approach towards their own disability. Who can answer that? Someone with a disability themselves. And we can only understand these different needs and try to actually work towards a solution that is sustainable and eventually leads to the solution as being an investment. I'm saying that because many times we don't see accessibility as an investment as well. And in all of this, social media plays a very, very powerful role. Even in my personal space, being a writer, being someone who's creative, I've always used comedy as my medium of talking about disability because it naturally resonates with my journey, and it creates a very powerful statement that people with disabilities have a sense of humor. They can make fun of themselves. They can make fun of you as well. And social media really gave me that platform to bring that perspective out. Because if I was stuck within the narrative that, okay, I need to just go around, talk to people and make it happen, I don't think I would be encouraged that much. It's only when we create like a unified voice unanimously and together, that's when it works out. Fruit Chart was one of the short films that I was able to produce with a bunch of amazing people who believed in the vision. It's a comedy short film. And how did the magic happen? How did the word get across? Because of social media. Also, I think social media connects people with different businesses, with different ideas. So right now, as an entrepreneur, I am committed, and of course, with the whole onboarding of Purple Tuesday, I'm even more excited that we have these examples across the world that I'm hearing from everybody. And we will be able to create a trend in Pakistan that customer service has to be inclusive. And as an entrepreneur, I can say that we have to encourage organizations to look at it as an investment and not just as a CSR program that should be there to look good on paper.
Tanzila, thank you very much. And just one word, just given the catastrophic flooding in Pakistan recently, we're using Purple Tuesday as an opportunity just to raise awareness and understanding of people with disabilities generally. As host, I'm going to have to absolutely apologise. I've got so wrapped up in all the interviews, we've kind of run out of time for questions, but we will look at them, and if they're specific to the panelists today, I will absolutely ensure that we ask the panelists and we circulate the questions and answers. And in summary, for me, what a start. You know, the social leadership of disability. You have heard 5-6 people today tell you exactly the range and how it can be done. So I wanted to say a huge thank you to Harriet, to Rob, to Crispin, to Madhavi, to Meta, and to Tanzila for wonderful insights, wonderful contributions. Can I thank you all for being participants today? And I look forward to seeing you over the next few hours in the other sessions. So thank you ever so much.